There's something to me that I find really significant about working with the smallest of components and trying to add them up into something that's greater than its parts. My work as really being atomic in that sense. I make things out of other things. And these are pictures that I feel are like as ambitious in scale as an installation is. So in other words, I might spend a year or two making a large collage, and in that process I am researching the images that I'm cutting out. I'm thinking about the histories of people working in a similar way, and all trying to make it relevant to things like the sciences and the humanities and politics. Even when I was working as an installation artist, I was thinking about the details of a space sort of as a kind of extended still life. So the audience would be able to encounter hundreds of precisely arranged objects which would add up to that narrative. I love the time alone in the studio where you're responsible for every move. Sometimes I work with assistants on bigger projects. And what I prefer out of all these situations is working with great collaborators. So you can't make a project like the spaceship at Masmoka without musicians and actors and welders and stained glass artists and computer scientists. I love the sort of paths that you accumulate as an artist working collaboratively. One thing that's very important to my work as a collage artist is the fact that I'm using components that all began their life as a painting. The things that happen in the studio generally begin with drawings and a lot of reading. I would say that my practice comes out of literature and film almost more than anything else. Even when I was a painter, I felt like I was building paintings. And it's not unusual for me to buy a book a dozen times if there's an image that I think I can keep reusing. And even though I think a lot of these sources are very problematic politically, what I try to do is to critique them by recombining them. So for me, this kind of visual sampling I've been engaged with now for over 30 years, and it's gone from being a kind of approximation of surrealism to being more of a pointed commentary. I'm never just working with collage, let's say, for a year. It's always an intermittent practice. I might spend 2 years cutting things out, and at the same time I'd be assembling collages about other subjects and maybe working on a video or an installation for another museum. I began to shift to works that had larger themes that were maybe about history or environmental ruin or paradigm shifts in science. And so that led me to these bodies of work, including the Birds with Weapons series, which have an overall title of pornithology, kind of a perversion of nature. So here we see a falcon with an automatic weapon just having killed a shorebird. And so these obviously were metaphorical kind of for the way that we treated the environment. Our animal instincts are the worst kind in terms of the health of the planet. The process of getting these books used to be that I would rip the spines off, discard all the pages that I didn't want, and have this kind of pile of ripped edges. And then a friend gave me years ago a mini cutting mat, and I began to remove each picture. When I was done, I sort of realized almost idiotically that I had used a book of moths, and I had cut out moths from this book and was left with a moth-eaten book. But that's a very beautiful object now that I can exhibit as part of a separate body of work. And then there's this weird automatic poetry that happens on the other side where the texts are cut out and aligned in different ways. So for me, this was a real discovery and sort of further clarified my collage process as something that was sort of about conservation and salvage. To get a second body of work by accident is almost like in the spirit of modernity and in the spirit of collage. My mission is to sort of delight and destroy I want to bring the viewer to the work and then sort of destroy some expectations about its content, then I think I'm on the right track for using it somehow. And I've found things over the years that sat unused for decades, and finally they find their way into an installation or into an image. Obviously, I have tens of thousands of pieces ready to go. Someday I hope to have a social life. I can already tell that this is going to be a collage of something like 2,000 components. Like, I'm pretty confident that these images are going to end up in this collage. But there are hundreds of bags of things that I haven't used yet. Like, I have 200 magnifying glasses with hands holding them. And I know that's destined for something, but I might not get there. And part of the pleasure in having a bunch of junk is that you forget what you have and then you discover it later, and maybe at that point you can actually know what it's going to be used for.